Welcome to Choose Views with Richard Chew.
Get ready to dive into a world of insightful conversations and thought-provoking discussions.
As progressives, our job is to have an all-inclusive, full-on assault with all of our players.
A show that focuses on moving our political, social, economic, gender, and cultural conversation forward.
And all of our players means all of our players.
It's Choose Views. And now, here's your host, Richard Chew.
Good Friday morning, political fighters, and welcome to the July 3rd, 2026 edition of Choose Views. 773-763-9278 is the number. Find my show on Facebook Live, TuneIn Radio, and YouTube. Email me at richard@wcpt820.com and follow me on all of the socials under Choose Views. Catch all of our shows by subscribing to our WCPT podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, and iHeartRadio. There you can get Choose Views featured interviews, Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive, the great Patty Vasquez driving it home, and It's the Democracy Stupid with Edwin Eisendrath, Out Chicago, and our other great shows and interviews. And also, in the evenings, make sure that you check out the Politics Bar, the Matt McNeil Show, and, of course, the Gailey Show. I want to make sure you have a chance to grab all of our shows and all of our interviews and programs that we have here on WCPT to make absolutely certain you're missing nothing. You're getting everything. So make your way over to Heartland Signal so that you can grab all the shows that we have and make sure you're plugging in what you've got going, what we've got going, I should say. And there you go, guys. It's Friday, July 3rd, the Friday before the 4th of July. And how about that? We've made it to another pre-4th of July, or I guess you could say anniversary of that. And so much that we've been welling up to with regard to the America 250 that we have been doing here at WCPT, or specifically on my show, with the help of Professor Kevin Schultz from the University of Illinois at Chicago, who's been such a champion in terms of historical perspectives that we all need to be aware of. So thanks to him and who's ever on his team that helped him in pulling together some of the things, and also to our guests that were part of our broadcast in that space. We really appreciate you lending your knowledge and your experience to the work that we do. So, and we've had questions this week, which we'll get to in a second in terms of the question of the day. But let me give you a quick rundown, a couple of quick things that are happening over at Heartland Signal. The first one is we talked a little bit about Representative Cesar down in Texas giving the business to the conversation around the SCOTUS decision to protect birthright citizenship. It was a narrow vote, as we all know by now. It should have been 9-0 because it's in the Constitution. But we've got some folks that, you remember back a while back that how the right talked about activist judges. Well, we've got some activists, and the right was saying that those activist judges were left-leaning. Well, we've got clearly members of the Supreme Court that are activist judges that are right-leaning. There is no question. The Constitution says it, and with regard to birthright citizenship. So this should have been a 9-0 vote, but that's not where we are. We do these four blind, as Representative Cesar says at our article and post at Heartland Signal, these four men so blinded by partisanship and extremism that they act like they can't see the words in the Constitution. That's brilliantly stated, Representative Cesar. These four men so blinded by partisanship and extremism that they act like they can't see the words in the Constitution. Brilliant. And then former Minnesota State Rep Karen Clark, you guys may have heard this by now, author of Minnesota's marriage equality bill, passed away at age 80. Some historic closing remarks right before the landmark State House vote passed in 2013. You'll want to catch those at our heartlandsignal.com website. So make your way over there so that you can have a chance to check out those words and those posts. On today's show, obviously, we'll be taking your calls through the course of the show today. In the 6:30 hour, we have a special interview that I did with Daniel Squadron, who you guys, you've heard the name before. You've heard us talk about a particular project that he's involved with. He's a president and co-founder of Future Now, and author of The Fourth Branch, How State Government Can Save Our Union. So you'll want to check out that interview that's coming to you in the 6:30 hour. And then at 7 o'clock, it's K and K squared. Kevin, listen to me. Got that on my brain. Karen Byrne, our friend from True Blue Politics podcast, co-host, and Kurt Mullet, also known as Hoosier Blue 63, will be with us in the 7 o'clock hour, and we'll be riding together, the three of us in the crazy car this morning. So looking forward to having that conversation with those guys. And then in the 7:30 hour, Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson with a July edition of this month with the mayor. We've got a lot to talk about. We won't be able to cover it all in the short time that we have, but we'll do our best to cover as much as we can with Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson on what's happening here with obviously some of the upside things that are going on in the city, him navigating through concerns around crime issues and economic issues. So we'll have a chance to chat with the mayor in the 7:30 hour. But we thank you guys for being with us on this Friday. And let me get to today's question, and then we'll talk about the questions that we've had this week surrounding America at 250. So today's question is, what do you guys think of this energy in the primaries that is electing seemingly more progressive / socialist candidates? Give me your assessment. Give me your thoughts about what do you think of this energy in the primaries that is electing seemingly more progressive socialist candidates at this time. Give me your assessment. You can send me an email, of course, at richard@wcpt820.com. You can also email me. You can send me an email. You can send me a text at 773-763-9278. And you can give us a call. We'll be taking your calls, as I said. And last but not least, make your way over to our Facebook page where you can leave your comments there. We'd love you to go there and check out what we have on Facebook. And you might be checking us out Facebook Live right now. Who knows? So, yeah, we want to get your thoughts on that. Tell us about this energy of progressive socialist candidates being elected in primaries. Give us your assessment, or give me your assessment of that. I've got I've got some information we'll cover after the break in the space of Choose Views News, and then talking a little bit about some employment things that I want to lean into this morning. So we'll make sure to give you some thoughts there when we come back from our first break. But it seems as though everything is the numbers are interesting right now when it comes to employment and what certain companies are doing and changes that they're making. So we'll lean into that after we come back from this first break. And speaking of that, let's see. We have a text already. All right. This is from our friend Jim in Crest Hill, Illinois. Happy Independence Day. Happy Independence Weekend. Some of the leaders in Washington are hell-bent on making sure that we the people are not independent. It's disgusting, but they will lose. They can count on it. Way to go, Jim. Great post, and thanks for sending your thoughts to us. As I promised, I wanted to make sure to do a quick rewind of the questions of the week, the questions of the day that we've had through the course of this week. So let me pull those up real quickly and read them to you. Yesterday's question, Thursday's question was, what will you specifically change or advocate for to make sure our freedoms are maintained in our democracy? That was yesterday's question. On Wednesday, our question was, we the people, thank you, Jim, what can or should we be doing to assure that we the people, in quotes, are still what matters most? Tuesday's question, based on 50 years to now, which was 50 years ago, meaning 1976 to 2026, do you think that going forward we will have a 300th birthday to celebrate and a democracy to celebrate? And then Monday's question was, from the 200th birthday in 1976 to now, which is the 250th birthday, what have been the pros and cons in America in those 50 years? Any question you want to grab onto or send your comments today, you may have commented earlier this week or through the course of the week. We'd still like to hear from you, hear what your thoughts are there. You can send them to me in the manner of a text. I think kind of Jim sort of wrapped up the whole week there, which is great. But send those to us. You can text them to us. You can send an email. You can also call today. I know that Mike and Henry were grabbing your calls. and let us know what your thoughts are. Whether if we get you on or not, we will do our best to talk about it. And then, of course, go to our Facebook page and let us know what your thoughts are there. But give us, your assessment. And again, we want to hear from you because we believe in what you guys have to say. It's an important part of what we do, and we want to embrace that. So give us your thoughts. That being said, let's take a quick break, guys. The number is 773-763-9278. You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT, AM 820 in Chicago, and 1520 AM along with 1520 AM along with 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina. That's Warren County, North Carolina, WARR. And then AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. Yes, AM 950 is our partner in the great state of Minnesota. I'm Richard Chu. We'll be right back. Hey guys, welcome back to Choose Views. 773-763-9278 is the number. You're listening, of course, to Choose Views. And we've got a couple of Choose Views news items for you guys on this July 3rd, 2026. OpenAI proposes giving U.S. government a 5% stake in the company. Wow, that's considered a public-private partnership that would give the U.S. government a 5% stake in the company to bid in a bid to quell the growing unrest over disruptions of artificial intelligence, according to the Financial Times. Citing some anonymous sources, under the proposal, other U.S. tech companies would offer similar stakes, though it's unclear if any more are on board. Struggling EV maker Lucid Motors replaces its CFO. Yesterday, Alexander DeBach will succeed Taoufiq Boussard as the electric vehicle maker's chief financial officer after a handover period. The shakeup is part of a broader management overhaul that includes the appointment of 6 new leaders. The news came as Lucid reported second quarter production and deliveries that failed to meet the Wall Street estimates. CEO Silvio Napoli is striving to put the firm on a stronger footing, and the uneven demand for EVs is changing. Rival Tesla on Thursday also reported second quarter deliveries that surpassed their expectations. Rivian lists their full year delivery guidance after some layoffs. Rivian Automotive yesterday noted that after their full year delivery guidance after a strong second quarter in which demand for the car maker's electric vehicles exceeded their expectations, were fueled by sales of the electric delivery vans and their R1 models, according to the company. Rivian is set to report its full financial results for the fiscal second quarter on July 30th. And yes, this is the EV news day, but there's a point I'm going to make in a moment. Tesla deliveries surged 25% after and even as Musk shifts his focus. Tesla delivered more than 480,000 vehicles globally in the second quarter, the automaker announced yesterday, an increase of 25% over the last year. Analysts had expected that the Elon Musk-led company would be delivering closer to 400,000 vehicles. Their stock fell about 6% on the news. Tesla's under pressure to keep its electric vehicle sales up to offset its massive outlay on other projects, like robotics and artificial intelligence, which have increasingly become the focus of Elon Musk, according to Bloomberg. And last but not least, and this is the point I want to make, U.S. added 57,000 jobs in June. But that's half of the amount that was actually expected. The U.S. economy added just 57,000, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, as we promised we would provide to you. This is about half as many as the economists had expected. The unemployment rate declined slightly to 4.2%, mainly because the labor force participation rate also dropped. Continuing a recent trend, job gains were limited to a handful of sectors, particularly healthcare and social assistance. The leisure and hospitality field lost more than 60,000 jobs in its biggest drop since 2020, suggesting weaker than usual seasonal hiring, despite hopes linked to the World Cup. So my thoughts here are pretty straightforward. Tesla is showing some signs of some fracturing. Even though they did have some strong deliveries, their deliveries are down because of the fact that, as I see it, and many real truly experts are seeing it, Elon Musk is not paying attention to the core business and the other items, space exploration and robotics and those sorts of things are taking away from the core workings of Tesla. But the one thing that Tesla gets that the other two companies don't readily get is a seat at the table. Lucid and Rivian don't have the same seat at the table that Tesla has because of the amount of money that Tesla, or specifically Elon Musk, has thrown at Donald Trump during this re-election period and all the rest. And so the problem that we all should be mindful of when it comes to this is that here's a company that, without the support of our U.S. government and the tax dollars that it gets, how well would it be performing, or how not well would it be performing if it were not for the benefits that come from our federal government, and in some cases on state governments based on where Tesla's located. And we really have to take that into account when we talk about employment and we look at employment numbers being down. Our employment numbers could be up if we spent more time, if the federal government under this administration spent more time putting support tools in place to help sectors that are struggling. That's a fact. I read the article yesterday from The Economist and the data from The Economist. Those are numbers that would be supported, or would be stronger rather, if the federal government under this Trump administration did a better job of supporting companies that have been struggling, are in sectors that are struggling, or small businesses that need to have those tax breaks presented to them. And we talked to Anusha Thadakora yesterday. She spoke to that heavily, and she spoke about what's happening here in Illinois, Citizens Action Illinois, but she also was making a global statement with regard to the rest of the country. Our federal government under the Trump administration is not doing what it promised, yet alone what it could or should be doing to help these small businesses stabilize and frankly, potentially prosper. That's on them. Once again, that's on the GOP. That's on the Trump administration. And I think we have to make sure that our narrative is continually going to be, this is on you, Donald Trump. This is on you, GOP. And be armed with the numbers and the data. I'm going to do my best to keep providing you guys with data that you can present to people. And in that presentation to people that want to talk about how great he is and how that things are better than they were under Biden and all those other statements that they throw out willy-nilly without really any data to back that up, we want to provide data and have you guys have some access to some things. So just keep reaching out to us when you've got questions. If you have questions about certain things that I report or provide to you with Choose Views News, then let me know. And I can always send you more details. I can send you links that you can use. So just to be aware of that. And I want to tell you a quick story, real brief story, and then I want to hit you with some things that are going on, a couple other things that are going on. So I was heading to the gym, and one of the gentlemen that works outside of that works in the kind of lobby area of the gym, there's an outdoor waterfall and pool. And I literally walked up to him on my way in, and I said, "What do you guys do to keep this pool from collecting algae and having the bottom of it peel away and be a disaster?" And he said, "Well, we have a group that comes through and they put in certain things and they clean it and they make sure that it's running properly and they do the things that are pretty basic, nothing real heavy duty or scientific, but they just maintain it." And I said, "Wow, that's fascinating. You should send that team to Washington, D.C. and have them be able to help clean out the reflecting pool." And his response was great. And I'm not going to mention his name, but his response was great. He said, "Yeah, it seems like we didn't really have any issues with the reflecting pool under Obama, but we sure as hell have a bunch of problems with it now under Trump." And he said that maybe from an employment standpoint, we should be making sure that certain people that know how to do these things have those jobs and they can get there and they can do the work and get it done. And I thought, I couldn't have said it any better myself. But yeah, a little bit of conversation around employment joy and how to make sure you take care of a reflecting pool. Today on Live, Local, and Progressive, Joan Esposito will be taking your calls, having an extended conversation with Joel Ostrow, professor of political science at Benedictine University, Brian Endless, who is also a senior lecturer and director of African Studies at the African Diaspora at Loyola University. They'll be in studio from 3 to 5, Live, Local, and Progressive. That's Joan Esposito, weekdays 2 to 5. Central Time here on WCPT, heartlandsignal.com, and tune in. Tonight on Driving It Home, Patty Vasquez will talk with Rodney Friedman, producer of the documentary Are You a Librarian? The untold story of Black librarians, and filmmaker Neil Bloom, newly named artist in residence at Rockford Public Library. Driving It Home with Patty Vasquez, weekdays 5 to 7 here on WCPT, Heartland Signal website, TuneIn, YouTube, and Facebook. Tomorrow on It's the Democracy Stupid, Paul Shivari will fill in for Edwin Eisendrath and have semi-sequicentennial themed conversations. See, I got that right. Took twice, but I got it right. William Muck will be with him. Kevin Schultz. Paul will also interview Edwin, recently interview with the Atlantic's Tom Nichols, and we'll be taking your calls. It's the Democracy Stupid. Saturdays 1 to 4 here on WCPT. And Sunday from 11 until 1, WCPT, Scott Duff and Ella Miller invite you to spend Sunday brunch with your gay best friends. Each week on Out Chicago, they'll tackle headlines from a queer perspective and focus on accomplishments in the vibrant LGBT community across the globe. There you go. We'll be back on Monday. We got a lot going on. I'll tell you a little bit more about that when we come back. But right now, let's take a quick break. 773-763-9278 is the number. You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT AM 820 in Chicago and WARR 1520 AM and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina, and our good friends at AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. I'm Richard Chu. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Choose Views. We have so many people that are part of the mix right now, that are part of the conversation, and they are those that are authors, those that are professors, those that are folks that are running for office. You know, I say this all the time. We have a very strong bench in the Democratic Party right now. One of the people that has really been out in front is someone that's actually held office and done the work of campaigning, done the work of working on other campaigns. Daniel Squadron is a president and co-founder of Future Now. Whenever I've had a conversation with him, he's always been talking about, Richard, it's important that we make sure that state legislators and legislatures are operating and functioning like a well-oiled machine, because they are the backbone of what we are trying to get done on a national level. He would probably say, and I'm putting words in his mouth intentionally, that where we really have lost ground is on the state level. So I'm going to welcome Daniel to Choose Views. Thanks for hanging out with us this morning. What's going on, my friend?
Thanks for having me. Keep putting words like that in my mouth. It's great. Both when I'm around, not around. It's certainly true.
So states have been, I've felt this for years. I mean, state legislatures have been the backbone of all political conversation. And we as a Democratic Party, we've without question, there's no doubt, there's no need to tiptoe around it. We lost a lot of ground there. And that's been that foundation that we don't have or haven't had to be able to have a national impact. Talk about that, and certainly we'll get into chatting about your most recent book, which is going to be a bestseller, folks. Go ahead.
Your mouth to God's ears. You know, it's easy to overlook states because some of what's on the surface isn't that appealing. You know, it often kind of feels like a place that's just sort of local, almost shabby folks just trying to get a title, maybe a parking permit. In the New York State Legislature, where I served for nearly a decade, you get free Saratoga Seltzer, which I would say is one of the best beverages in America.
I've had it. It's good.
I'm sure Chicago has its own version too. But under that surface, they actually have enormous power. In fact, if you think about any domestic policy issue over the last 15 years, state legislatures have done more harm or good than Congress has. was. That's true even when Congress acts, like Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, which one of its most important provisions was expanding Medicaid way up into the middle class. But, actually states needed to do that provision. Today, nearly 20 years after it was passed, there's nearly 100 million Americans who still don't have Medicaid or the minimum wage, where the state's last minimum wage increase was the same time the first iPhone came out, not your most recent one, the first one.
Wow.
It's $7.25. But in states around the country, including Illinois and some others in your region, people are earning billions, literally, of dollars a year thanks to a higher minimum wage. Issue after issue, including one that people should be pretty worried about now, I know you are and talk about a lot, which is just the fundamental existence of this democracy that was set off 250 years ago. So it's easy to overlook states. It's sometimes more appealing to get involved in what's almost like a sporting event of national politics. You have your favorites, you have some good videos. But actually, if you want to look where power is and where you as an individual, everyday person have the most, it's states.
Yeah. And access to the state officials oftentimes is a lot easier. I mean, it's kind of common sense. Our federal folks are in Washington the majority of the time, other than when they're on breaks or whatever the case may be. And frankly, if you're running for office, well, it has been up until recently, a lot more affordable. I won't say less expensive, but more doable from a financial standpoint because it is a state election. But the other thing that I think is critically important, and you talk about this in the book, is that when we've got state officials that are doing the right things, it does really get into we the people. It really does foundationally speak to, that's my vote. That's my person. He or she is, probably in the neighborhood right down the street. And it creates that I'm involved feeling, and people, they know it's right there. So talk a little bit about what you, as having been a former state legislator, what you saw and what those conversations were like with people that you may have seen in the grocery store or at the gym, and they came up to you and said, hey, I need this taken care of.
Actually, I would say a lot of my best ideas when I was in office came from that. I would knock doors or go to tenants association meetings in public housing. I represented tens of thousands of public housing residents. And it wasn't some sort of bigger issue of the financing schema of public housing. It was the elevators are broken all the time. And people who have trouble walking up, high rises end up isolated and hungry.
Yeah.
Very specific. Elevators weren't a small issue that was a symptom of the problem. For a lot of public housing residents, they were the central problem. Or the fact that having more police presence that was visible rather than undercovers who were there kind of waiting to catch folks was really important. So it kind of got out of that debate about law enforcement. Yes, law enforcement was good and important, but also visible law enforcement that felt like a partner was. Solution after solution. I even, knocking on some doors in my district, learned about a whole new type of company, private company, that also has a goal of doing good, not just making profit. Got that passed in New York. And so that's just not true on the federal level. If you want to win at the state level, you have to go meet voters where they are, and not just on television and social media. And when you meet them, you learn things. My favorite part of this is actually when I first ran for office, and I talk about this in The Fourth Branch, my new book. I was 28 years old. I wasn't qualified, to tell you the truth. I was running against a 30-year incumbent. I'm a Democrat in a Democratic primary. And I just thought he didn't fully see the potential of states. But you know what? By the time I won that primary, I had knocked on nearly 10,000 doors, and there was no one more qualified to represent that district. Not because of any great quality I had, but because after 10,000 doors asking people to hire you, you learn a whole lot about what they need to keep you there.
Yeah. And what's encouraging, exciting, I guess all these positive words around that, is people are going to be honest with you. They're going to tell you straight up. They're going to say, listen, whatever. I'll keep the expletives out of the conversation, but they'll come at you with the things that are not working that they need taken care of right now. You use the elevator as an example, but so many others that are situations where people from those door knocks are going to get right in your face and tell you what you need to hear. And it's inevitable, to your point, that you're going to become qualified, or you're certainly going to become aware of the things that are happening right there on the ground. Daniel, I've used this phrase a lot on my show, and that is everything that's local has a dotted line up the chain or through the chain that's national. And everything that's national has a dotted line to everything that's state and regional and local. I had the opportunity earlier this week to moderate a couple of forums at the Fair Tax Summit in Detroit. And one of the things that was overarching in conversations from other people that were on the stage, whether they be presenters or folks that were being asked questions, is that everything now, maybe like never before, certainly not by conversation, is connected. Everything, and it's not just the legislation, but it's also how people are perceiving what's happening on a federal level in relationship to local politics. How do you see that, or what are your thoughts around everything that's national is local and everything that's local is national?
Yeah, well, I love that image, and I would just put in the center of that image the states. Mm-hmm. And that's because they are the basic building block of the country. Remember, the federal government didn't create the states. The states created the federal government. And the same is true locally. Regional and local governments, even the city of Chicago, really important city with really important government, it's created by the state and has to go beg into the state for lots and lots of funding and policy shifts, for better and worse. But it's just a reality of the country that everything runs through the states. I talk in the book about the fact that even in New York City council members, big important folks, some of them go on to citywide office in Congress, and they would always say, oh, that's the state. State officials could never say, oh, that's the city. We were stuck. But I think it's also true. You really touched on something really important, which is in this media environment, states can have even more power because a local conversation, Mallory McMorrow making a speech just about kind of core justice, can propel her to the national stage. James Tallarico, by approaching his values of opportunity from the point of view of his Christianity, can become a leading candidate in a purple or reddish state for U.S. Senate. And so that elevates them. And then, of course, the third thing that elevates them, they're the core building blocks, the way the media ecosystems works, even local conversations can become national. But the third is, the Supreme Court is, and Donald Trump are obsessed with the power of states. The Supreme Court keeps taking away federal protections, like the federal protection to reproductive health care that was in place for 50 years. It didn't wipe it away completely. It just said states get to choose whether or not folks have it. Samuel Alito said the people's representatives, he meant state lawmakers. It just happened with the Voting Rights Act. The Supreme Court gutted protections against discriminatory congressional and state legislative maps, but states can still protect their maps from being discriminatory. Just the federal government doesn't anymore. And Donald Trump is actually right now obsessed with taking power from states because, as the framers knew, the number one defense against authoritarianism, the number one defense against a king, is the decentralized way our democracy is run by, altogether now, the states. The
states, yeah. And you were talking about people who've been a state politician or state elected official or local that have gone on, in terms of Mallory McMorrow, that speech, drew national attention. Tallarico, there's so many others. And one person who is about to have something celebrated, that he was a city organizer, became a state senator, and went on to become a U.S. senator. And our president started right on the south side of Chicago, organizing folks into getting things done. And that just goes to show. And we to say that he's a generational politician or leader or president, that's one way of looking at it. But he still did the work. He put the work in. He was blessed with certain skills, but he put the work in on a local level. Right down the street from where I, live in Chicago, I remember him doing stuff, and that he just kept building and growing and going. And I think that's also recruiting's not the right word, but it's the one that comes to mind. It's also a way for us to let people know who want to run for office that you can start right in your community and look where it could take you. And it took him all the way to the White House. So I think that's the other side. The legislative side is important, but it also for people, when we talk about this all the time, you talk about it in the book, you talk about it when you're out touring and the different things, meetings and stuff that you're a part of, is getting people involved. Well, if folks know that you start right locally in your community, you can, make it to the White House someday. I mean, it's
if you want to see the future, if you want to see the future of American politics, look to the states. Yeah. That's true in terms of leaders like Barack Obama, Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, Stacey Abrams, James Tallarico, Franklin Roosevelt, Teddy Roosevelt, Abraham Lincoln. Yeah. It's also true in terms of policies. If you wanted to know what the Supreme Court was going to do with reproductive rights, you should have looked at Mississippi 5-6 years earlier when they were just pushing bill after bill, which I talk about in the book. And it's true in terms of tone. I talk about a Trumpian type of ugly right-wing populism from some of my colleagues in the New York legislature way back in 2010, 2011, 6 years before he descended the golden escalator. Lee Zeldin, who's now in his administration, is actually someone I served with in the legislature. And I'd say this, I'm here to make sure people are aware of the power of states through the book, The Fourth Branch. So I'm not here to hawk another book, but I would say that President Obama's presidential memoir, the first 100 pages, is an incredible description of exactly what you're describing, doing the work and being a state lawmaker. And remember, he went from being a state lawmaker to being a leading contender for president in about 20 months.
Yep.
And so it's an amazing opportunity, in addition to hopefully reading The Fourth Branch, to really see how history can get made from the state legislature.
Absolutely. Let's take a quick...
He's also a great writer. That's a great thing about that guy.
Yeah, he is. He's the full package, I guess we could say. Let's take a quick break. You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT AM 820 in Chicago and WARR 1520 AM and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina, and our great friends at AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. I'm Richard Chu, and we're talking with Daniel Squadron, who's the president and co-founder of Future Now. And when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about his latest book, which I'm predicting is going to be a bestseller. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Choose Views. As I said before the break, we're talking with Daniel Squadron, who is the president and co-founder of Future Now. But like so many people that are on Choose Views, y'all know how much I love my authors. I love my professors. And although he's not a professor, he's an author and is a hell of a lot more. Daniel, let's talk about The Fourth Branch. What's so amazing about the book is no one's written on this topic in the way in which you have, where you position it as a teaching tool, but also kind of a guidebook. Like, here are some steps that we can take to implement success on a state level. So why did you decide to write this book? Motivation to do it. And how do you, in your mind, kind of want people to use it as a tool, as a mechanism to make some stuff happen?
Yeah, from the first day at Future Now, my co-founder and I, Adam Pritzker, have been really focused on trying to make this case for states. That's why we launched the States Project, which is an effort that gives everyday people the ability to have the knowledge and tools to themselves have a huge impact in state legislative races. So there's two parts of it. One, you need to understand how important they are, but then two, it's actually really hard once you know that they're important to figure out among 50 states which races, which chambers really are going to matter in the country. And so the States Project has from the beginning been a tool for regular people to come together, form their own giving groups that we call giving circles. And what we found is when we had real conversations with folks, we were able to get them in a living room for a half hour or have a cup of coffee with us, they would get incredibly excited. It was as though the scales had fallen from their eyes. And instead of looking at the federal government and feeling powerless and frustrated, which, by the way, I don't blame folks for. Folks are powerless when they look at the federal government in many ways, and it is frustrating. That doesn't mean that you're powerless in politics. And so we have these experiences where a 20-minute conversation, a 40-minute meeting, people would get excited.
Yeah.
And so a book is a great way to kind of tell that story, including through really the personal experiences I'd had in New York State and the experiences of a few other state lawmakers from around the country, from New Hampshire and North Carolina, Nebraska and Alaska. And it's a really human experience. And so it just felt like this is not where the glamour is. This is not where the attention goes. But if folks, are willing to curl up and actually think about power and the humans who are wielding it often behind the scenes, that might really inspire them. And that was the goal here.
Yeah. Well, when I think about that in terms of what you said earlier about being powerless, the ability to galvanize on a local level is actually easier. I said a moment ago about, it's less costly. And I didn't mean that just in terms of the dollar, the money that's spent, but also in terms of the people power. It's easier to galvanize the folks that are right there in your community because they're right there in the community. And it's interesting how, I think I'm going to say these words, they're not necessarily yours, but local politics, although effective and certainly the platform, they've been made less sexy than the national conversation. And, sometimes we're the ones that contribute to that the most because we're always talking about the national issues, and the national issues are the ones that, that's why voter turnout during national elections is higher proportionately than they are for state and local elections. Do you see, with all that I just said about that, do you see that that's changing in terms of local elections and state elections, state legislative elections, having better turnout than we've seen in over the last number of years, whatever that would be?
It's still hard to get people at a mass level to kind of turn out for state legislative elections, but there are some other exciting things happening. One is it's actually easier to persuade people. Of course, turnout and enthusiasm is important, but we also need to, if we're going to save this country, actually be having conversations with folks who need to be convinced. And at the state level, research has shown, and our experience at the States Project has shown, it's much more possible to persuade people, to actually think about a candidate from the other party than the level they're voting on for president or where they kind of consider their personal identity, to convince them to vote for that candidate. And that's powerful, and it's itself a form of hope. There's another thing that we've seen that's totally shifted, which is as of the time the States Project was founded, for years, certainly for the last few presidential elections, at the state legislative level, Republicans, because they had been focusing on this level, and conservatives had for 50 years, arguably for nearly 250 years, were outperforming. So whatever was happening in the national environment at the top of the ticket, state legislative level, Republicans, conservatives were doing better. We flipped that script. Now in places where the States Project works, Democrats and progressives are outperforming the top of the ticket. And that's very exciting. Now, look, we're trying to build a mass movement focused on states as a tool to make our founding ideals in this country, the idea that all people are created equal with the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and the government has a real role in securing those rights, come true. That movement has giving circles behind it. I hope some of your listeners will go to fourthbranchbook.com and start their own giving circle. The truth is, we haven't yet built that mass movement because the distraction and the tidal pull of federal politics are still too great. But I also think the passivity that comes from focusing on politics, the sense that all you can do is just make yourself feel better, really is corrosive for our politics.
Yeah.
So what I can say to folks is it isn't sexy, but it's fun and fulfilling to know you are not a spectator to the destruction of the democracy, but an active participant in saving it. And that's what happens at the state level.
One of the things that comes to mind when you say that, I have to ask this question about the states that are the great states, are the ones that are and I know you may be forced to pick your favorites, but it will be database in your answer, I'm sure. But the states that are really, getting it done and really taking from what you've been, practicing for such a long time with the States Project and now with Future Now, and running with it, and that they're seeing the results that we want to see. What have been the top 3, 5, 7 states that you're coming across that they've gotten the message and they're implementing it?
Well, I mean, you have to look at folks like Joanna McClinton, the Speaker in the Pennsylvania House with a 1-seat majority, and the other party, Republicans, in the majority in the Senate. But despite that, Joanna McClinton has pushed new education funding, has made the election system more resilient, is getting things done by finding how to hold her fractious caucus together. I would say every state in the last 10 years, about a dozen states have passed paid family leave. So we talk about the fact that the U.S. is a rich country that doesn't have paid leave. Well, actually, more than 120 million Americans do have paid leave now. That's a policy that states have passed. I'd say in your region, Winnie Brinks, who's the Senate Majority Leader in Michigan, passed bills to protect people's civil rights, secure reproductive rights after Dobbs, give tax breaks to Michiganders who needed it most, expanded school meals so that kids weren't hungry at breakfast or lunch in Michigan. Yeah. That's pretty exciting. Look, I'm actually not here to say that either party today has all the answers or is perfectly organized around those founding principles I described. But we also know, if we look at the best things that have happened in each of these states, what it would look like to be obsessed with that, and not, whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, answer to the special interests, but rather have a core set of values and radically chase our founding ideals. Because we know the more radically we've chased them in our history, the better we've done. And anytime we've compromised them, it's been a lot more than a mistake. It's been, incredible suffering and terrible for our country in many ways.
Yeah, without a doubt. So the trifecta is something that I talk a lot about when I've had state politicians on from different states, and how when Democrats, and this is by design meant to be a partisan statement or question, have had the trifecta, they've gotten a lot more done that moved the state forward than, by comparison, based on the data, when Republicans have had the trifecta or one of the chambers, and it's been a more regressive time frame than when they were in. So this is another reason I believe that that states matter, because when Democrats have had the trifecta, that state magically has moved forward. What are your thoughts there?
Well, look, there's a real question here in politics. Do you think government can help expand opportunity so that everyone's got a real chance at a reasonable life? Or do you want government to get into the back seat and have, those with the most power and money deciding how society works? And Democrats, for the most part, believe that government, needs to be made better and needs to be held accountable, but can be part of the solution. And so therefore, when they have power, they try to fix it. They try to improve it. I've talked about some of the ways in terms of people's economics. We could talk about it in terms of energy costs and building a modern, clean, cheap grid. So on issue after issue, if you just don't believe government should be there when you get control of it, you're going to make it worse.
Yep.
If you believe government has the possibility of doing good but has to be held accountable, you're going to obsessively ensure that happens.
Yep. That's so true. Last question. We'll have some fun as we wrap up, Daniel. And are you pleased that the Knicks won the NBA championship?
I mean, my wedding day, the birth of my 2 children are certainly the most powerful and important days in my life. I would say that Saturday night is on the list. I am a long-suffering Knicks fan. I think there's a lot to learn for Democrats as the Knicks. You know, if you lose an election, a popular election, as Democrats did in 2024, to a movement that has never before won a popular election, meaning a movement that fundamentally questions the tenets of our democracy explicitly. Never in a competitive race has that won a popular vote, even when it's won power in other ways. You have to say, we might just be the worst basketball team in history. You got to look at yourself whether you're the star, the end of the bench, the assistant trainer, or in the stands. And I know from experience as a Knicks fan that if you do that and you look deep enough, if you bring in actually a great Illinois high school graduate,
that's right,
and some really incredible basketball minds from Philly. I mean, we're talking about all the rivals here: Chicago, Philly. As a Knicks fan,
right.
You put it all together. A kid from Jersey, by the way. You know, we're welcome across the river, Cat. You can actually do great things, and you know what they say is the magic is in the work.
Yes, it is.
The magic is in the work. And actually, I would actually like to just say here, final thing about the Knicks victory. You know, Tom Thibodeau was not the coach on Saturday night, and Mike Brown did an incredible job and deserves all the credit for making the magic happen. But like Moses with the promised land, I think he deserves some real credit. And I know, you know, there's a real experience for him in Chicago too. For building a culture that's about head down, work. You win, you learn, you lose, you learn. So, you know, so glad that Mike Brown was there, and he deserves all the credit for the championship. But Tom Thibodeau also deserves a real nod of the hat from, I think, a lot of Chicagoans and a lot of New Yorkers.
Without a doubt. It is a team process, and we as a team are going to keep getting things done, particularly when we have folks like you, Daniel Squadron, president and co-founder of Future Now, and the great new book, The Fourth Branch. Thank you for taking some time to hang out with me here on Choose Views. We look forward to seeing you again soon when you're back in Chicago. But in the meantime, travel well, sir, be safe, and keep the head down and doing the hard work that you're doing. Thanks.
Thanks. A lot of fun.
All right. Talk to you soon. Bye now.
To the show. I think we're back. Of course, 773-763-9278 is the number. I'm Richard Chu, and of course, this is Choose Views. Thanks for guys for hanging out with us. Had a great time with talking with Daniel. He is quite the voice in this space right now, and someone that really has, made it clear that the states have so much opportunity. It's Friday. We're doing things a little bit differently this end of the week. We've got our good friends Karen Byrne from True Blue Politics podcast hanging out with us this morning, which is normal for a Friday. And then our other good friend from Wednesdays, he moved his calendar to Friday. That's our man Kurt Mullett from Hoosier Blues 63. Welcome to the show, guys. Good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, I'm the abnormal guest. So,
well, I'm glad.
Morning, Karen. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm great.
Well, everybody's got Everybody's got a smile on their face, so I guess that's good. Karen, I can feel your smile even though I can't see it. So that's it. There we go. We got that laugh. They got that laugh. Well, doggone, guys. Happy lead into the 4th of July. I know that a lot of people have, probably like never before in my life, a change of heart about how they're celebrating this July 4th and July 4th weekend. It's our 250th. Someone said to me it's actually a 251st based on birth. But that being said, this is our 250 semi-sequicentennial celebration. There we go. And there are a lot of people who are saying, you know what, Chu, I'm acknowledging what it is. However, I'm not making a big deal out of it this year because of how the president has tainted it. And I'm kind of in a middle on. Let me rephrase that. I understand why some people are saying, you know, I'm just going to kind of not make a big a deal out of it this year because of that tainting. Meanwhile, I have other people that have said to me, no, I'm not letting him steal my joy. And I probably land in the middle because I then add to it. There are a lot of people in this country whose ancestors were not celebrating 1776. like other people in this country were. So this is not my first year where I've kind of gone, okay, it's the 4th of July, you know. So there we go. Kurt, let's be gentlemen and let Karen have the first bite at the apple on that.
Absolutely.
Well, because, on our side of things, we tend not to do performative patriotism. I am not feeling it this year. And the reason being, we have seen voting rights gutted. We have seen the overturning of Roe. We have seen a heavy push by the Republicans for the SAVE Act, which would be kind of backdoor taking away women's right to vote. So I feel as though this year, yes, it definitely has to do with the occupant, the felon in the White House, but it also has to do with the fact that we're just not, I don't feel a lot to celebrate here, because we are not the country that, and whether it was, kind of rose-colored glasses. Of course, we've never been perfect. This time around, it just feels a lot different. It just feels like our government that is led by Republicans and Donald Trump is willfully and actively attacking us. So I don't feel a particular sense of patriotism this year.
Kurt, you got the baton.
Well, just a brief note. My mother passed away on July 4th of 2013, so I haven't been a big celebrator of July 4th since that occurred. That being said, no, definitely not in the mood to celebrate July 4th with what's going on with this dude. Illegal wars, genocide, taking away freedoms from our. I mean, it's laughable that we went from America 250 that was set up by Barack Obama to Freedom 250. I mean, seriously, Freedom 250. This is what this guy's calling it when he's stripping away freedoms right and left from Americans. And you'll get MAGA out there when I make posts like this will say, well, what freedoms have you been stripped away? I'm so tired of trying to explain things to them. If you're that low on the totem pole of intelligence that you need somebody to explain it to you with a piece of paper and a crayon, what freedoms have been stripped away, it's not worth the time to talk to you anymore. But this guy, we have a tyrant in the White House. We have an authoritarian dictator, a man who is grifting America like never before, who has been exposed that this whole Freedom 250 deal is a way for him to make more money. It's just, I can't. So I will be happy to be proud to be an American citizen, but I am not proud of who we are right now in no way, shape, or form. And so I won't. But Karen's right. We're not flashy. Celebratory people anyway. We like to keep our celebrations with those that we love and our families and friends. But yeah, this
Yeah.
And it's
he just has a way of taking the flavor out of the steak,
What's interesting, you said that thinking about what Troy Nell said about lobsters and steaks. We'll get to that in a second. Hold your fire, both of you, because I know y'all get howitzers you want to launch at that one. I'm gonna let y'all each have your bite at the apple on that one. But you know what it is, for me it is because for years, I mean literally I could say decades, with regard to the 4th of July, my family has always been celebrating getting together with each other. It wasn't really about the celebration of the countries. It wasn't that. It was about getting together with the folks that you love and you care about. And they didn't have to be blood relatives. I mean, in terms of direct blood, we're all blood relatives, but you guys know what I mean. It would be pulling together Kurt and Kurt's family and pulling together Karen and Karen's family and say, y'all come on by, we're cooking and we're doing our thing. That's what it's been. It's been bringing that energy together, but it wasn't about celebrating the country's greatness, because my community, my culture can very quickly say, like Frederick Douglass and W.B. Du Bois and so many other great African-American writers have written, about, a free country, but people in it not being completely free. So to that end, we're all in the same, as I said earlier yesterday, we're all in the same clown car, our clown car. It's ours. Y'all have to be invited in. And we invited everybody in this morning. But, when you think about that in the context of respecting what people on the ground are having to deal with, and you guys heard me talk about this yesterday, assuming you listen to this part of the show, Troy Nehls, and that answer when he came skipping down the stairs at the Capitol about lobsters and ribeye, and maybe they don't work as hard as I do. I'm hoping, whether it's a progressive Democrat, a further left Democrat, someone in the middle that's a moderate, I'm hoping the teams of people clip that together and run that ad nauseum, because that was the most visible example of not being connected to the community. We're going to take a break because we have to do that. When we come back, we'll start right there. You guys will start right there, and we'll talk about that because that's important. 773-763-9278 is the number. You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT, AM 820 in Chicago, 1520 AM and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina, and AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. I'm Richard Chu. We're talking with Karen Byrne from True Blue Politics Podcast and Kurt Mullet, also known as Hoosier Blue 63. We'll be right back. All right, guys, welcome back to the show. I'm Richard Chu. This is Choose Views. If you're just tuning in, Kurt Mullet is with us, and Karen Byrne from True Blue Politics Podcast. Karen, take it away. Tell us your thoughts about Troy Nehls and the GOP at large when it comes to steaks and lobsters, and y'all don't work as hard as I do.
Oh, boy. Well, look, we all work 2 and 3 jobs at this point. And, groceries are 3 times the cost of what they were before. Gas prices, have come down a little bit recently. But, we were looking at, I was doing a little monitoring of the local gas station near me, and it was $2.79 before the mess started in Iran, and then it went up to over $5. I think it was like $5.19. So it's come down a little bit from there, but it's still higher than it was. And I just, you were talking about running. That representative, him saying all that. But also, I think a good side-by-side would be U.S. Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins saying that, well, we can have a piece of chicken, a piece of broccoli, a corn tortilla, and one other thing. That's what they say. Talk about let them eat cake. Holy moly.
Yeah. Kurt, what are your thoughts,
man? Revolution, everybody.
What are my thoughts? Troy is an idiot. Okay, plain and simple. Him and his just arrogant aura and the way. I didn't see the clip. I read about it and all this. Okay, I don't know if he had his cigar in his mouth like he always does, sitting there talking his crap. And some of the things that Troy likes to talk about because he's such a tough guy, Yeah. I just, this guy has a history of saying some of the stupidest things, some of the dumbest remarks coming from this guy's mouth, and he blamed January 6th on the Capitol team.
Yeah.
He made a comment about a protest sign. Thought it was ridiculous that somebody had up that after the reel about the Obamas came out that Trump,
I saw it.
Yeah. Anyway, he's got a history of being stupid. So, it's expected that stupid things come from his mouth. I wouldn't expect anything different. So, but for him to stand there and say something like that, thinking that, he works harder than the 60% of Americans that are working paycheck to paycheck, probably not understanding that paycheck to paycheck is probably 2 or 3 paychecks because they're working 2 or 3 jobs. So
that's it.
I think a lot of our more progressive, more activist-minded folks that are running for office are going to pick that up and really be able to move forward with it, because it links to the conversation that each of the three of us have, whether we're having it together or separately or different venues, that so many politicians, and we know the ones on the right that are out of touch. This is an opportunity to really, really, really tag what they have been lying to so many people about for such a long time, and I'm hoping that Democrats, whoever they are, wherever they are on the scale, or the whatever the measuring stick of where they are politically, because this is not the only time he's done it, and this is not the only politician that's a Republican that's done a version of this. Like Karen just said so well, that we have to tag that they're the ones that are out of touch. They far more than Democrats
Completely.
are. Let me ask you guys. We know that Donald's grifting, and we know that every opportunity he has to grift, he does it. And we saw it most recently with these financial disclosures in terms of the number of pages. That's just another obscene display of where he is, but a Republican-led Congress that's just not doing anything about what got his stack up by 700 pages. They have not been ones to have the will to stop him. And that's why I keep tagging them with, this is on the Republicans, this is on the GOP, this is on the cabinet for not doing their job to slow down this reckless train. Karen, you got the baton.
They're happy to be on that train, I believe. I mean, they're not going to do a darn thing. If we think, I mean, at this point, we all kind of breathlessly waited the first term for what is that line, what is going to be the bottom or whatever we thought. And I really did think January 6th, listening to Kevin McCarthy, listening to Mitch McConnell, listening to Lindsey Graham speak very clearly about who is to blame, I thought, okay, all right, here we go. Now, this is going to be something that we're going to be able to hold, we're going to hold him accountable. We're going to make it so that he never is able to run again. And what did Mitch McConnell do? He kicked the can down the road to the courts, and knowing full well, and I believe he knew full well, that Donald Trump was going to do what Donald Trump always does, and that is to slow things down in the courts, delay, obfuscate. I mean, they're still doing it. Todd Blanche, I don't know if you heard this morning, Katie Fang, filed this this order to have them release the unredacted report, Epstein files, right? Yeah. Well, lo and behold, they just responded with, we don't have to do it because it would embarrass people and select people that are known, that ruin reputations. And so we'll see what happens. But this is what they do. They don't care. They do not stand for anything other than enriching themselves and their wealthy donors, the multinational corporations, and to hell with the rest of us. And this is what people need to understand. I mean, we're never going to get MAGA, but there are a bunch of independent voters and non-voters that we need to reach. And I think that this is the opportunity. They're laying it completely bare. They are completely brazen. They don't believe in the Constitution. They do not believe in the rule of law. They don't believe in any of it. And so we have to rise up and come together and defeat them.
Kurt, tie that to the terrible jobs report, the June jobs report. Brutal. I mean, 57 is less than half of what the projected number would be. Meanwhile, all this other grifting is going on the other side. What are your thoughts there?
Well, and do you really believe that report? I probably
Thank you.
think it's worse than what it is, because let's keep in mind who has control of the information here.
After what happened last year with the firing and the rehiring. Thank you, Kurt, for reminding us that.
Exactly. I don't believe anything that comes from this administration, from this regime. Nothing. So when I see a jobs report like that is just absolutely horrendous, I'm thinking, well, that's a lie. It's worse than that. I mean, that's like recalling a basketball game for 20 years ago that you got stomped 31 points and said, well, we lost in overtime. I mean, come on. But you're out of touch with reality. Yeah. That these people just, and unfortunately we have a cult world of MAGA that just believes and eats everything up that they put in front of them. The jobs report is horrendous, and I know that it's worse than that just because of talking to people who you know, aren't working as hard as Troy is, but you know, we're working. So, you know, the reality in the world here. But you know, hey, let's look. Let's just look at, you know, something he said that I found profound the other day was that I make a lot of money because I have a lot of money. This is the mindset
Yeah,
of this
yeah.
guy.
Oh.
This is who they are. Okay,
Mhm.
you know, this is where they come from.
There's so
Uh,
much to that to peel apart, and I didn't have
oh,
enough time the
it,
other day because me being, you know, having done what I've done for all these years, I was like,
right.
oh, wait a minute,
Wait, yeah, yeah,
yeah, oh, yeah, whoo,
yeah.
boy.
Stop there, right
Stop
there,
right
you
there.
orange.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
as we wrap up, and this has been cool, and we will do this again, guys, because I knew
Yeah.
the power of the three of us being together, but we will do this again, and maybe we'll do it for an hour in the next couple of weeks. Just know that.
Cool.
I'm upset with both of you though. Before we wrap up, I'm really upset that
Uh-oh.
y'all didn't get me tickets to the fairgrounds event in DC.
Oh,
mean,
I
what
sent them
what the
to you.
hell?
Didn't you get them?
No, would you put them in the mail like a mail-in ballot or something?
Yeah, yeah. They're in
Is
a
that
freeze-dried
crazy?
box with a lobster and some ribeyes.
With the lies and the ribeye
Yeah.
and a cigar. Karen, how come you didn't get me tickets, girl, to the fairgrounds? I mean, we
Listen.
could have shown up and showed out.
Listen, you think I can buy anybody tickets for anything? I'm sitting over here with my chicken, my broccoli, my tortilla, and one other thing. I can't, you know, I can't be buying
We need
tickets.
to go on the road, y'all. We got our own little comedy team.
Here, and that one other thing was a mint. If you remember, it was a
That's
candy
right.
mint.
It was a candy mint. Right. It was
Yeah.
one of those
Whopper thin mint.
Yeah, one of those bags of mints where you can, you know, we used to get them when we go to church to keep us quiet.
Yeah.
Even a Jordan almond. I can't even get a Jordan almond with that. Come on.
Yeah.
Is that crazy
Yeah.
though, y'all? I mean, again,
Oh, what
another
a
grift,
joke.
another waste of money,
Oh.
another waste of
Yep.
resources, and nobody showed up. I mean, and
Nobody showed up.
and Fox was bending themselves into pretzels,
Oh.
trying to make us. Y'all saw that, right? I mean, that's just
It's
like okay,
thousands of
Yeah.
people. There's 10.
thousands of people.
okay?
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
listen.
It's
I-
amazing, isn't it?
I've had
The
more
people are defending it.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's the part that they're defending it. That's the
Unreal.
crazy part.
On
I'm
brand.
gonna leave-
Totally on brand. So, yeah.
Totally on brand. I'm going to
Yeah.
leave you guys with smiles on your face. I love you both and respect you both.
Love
even more.
you.
Thank you so
Happy
much for
4th of
hanging out
July.
this morning. Happy 4th. Be safe. And I'll
Yeah.
see you and talk to you guys next week. We'll do this
Buy
again.
Mount Olive pickles. Mount Olive pickles. Keep
Mount
that in
Olive
mind.
Pickles. All right. We got you. All right,
They
guys.
walked away.
We're going to
Yeah.
take a quick break. You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT AM 820 in Chicago and WARR 1520 AM and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina, and our good friends at AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. When we come back, and thanks to Karen and thanks to Kurt, when we come back, we'll be talking with Chicago's own Mayor Brandon Johnson. We'll be right back. All right, guys, welcome back to Choose Views. It is Friday, July 3rd, 2026. And thanks to Karen Byrne from True Blue Politics Podcast, Kurt Mullet for hanging out with us as well from Hoosier Blue 63. And this is the first Friday of the month. It's also the Friday that we get a chance to speak to our mayor of the city of Chicago, the great city of Chicago, Brandon Johnson. Brandon Johnson is the mayor of the city of Chicago and is with us this morning. Good morning, Mayor Johnson. Welcome back to Choose Views.
Hey, good morning, Richard. Thanks for having me, and happy birthday, America.
Happy birthday, America. Yeah, you know, Mayor Johnson, one of the things that I had asked Karen and Kurt before they came on, and it was a question that I put out to a lot of people, and in terms of celebrating the 250th. All week we've been doing little spots called America 250. And the question, I think the big question for a lot of people is how they're celebrating this year because of, unfortunately, how much of a drag the federal administration, specifically Donald Trump, has been on this celebration. This is something that should be joyous and exciting, and we should take all the bad and the good and in between. But a lot of people, unfortunately, feel a little soured this year. What's been? I don't want to start off negatively. I don't mean to do that, but what's been your observation?
Well, but first of all, my observation is that if we're using fireworks and celebration as, a motto or a symbol, the president is certainly a dud. And and look, and it's across the board.
He said a dud, y'all. In case you didn't hear it, he said the president is a dud. Yes,
Yeah,
keep
it's
going.
a real Gen X term there. But he's been an absolute, failure, whether it's cutting Medicare, education, housing, transportation, jobs, like that goes without saying. But I believe there's still reason to celebrate. And the way I'm doing it is in community and with family, because that's where we find our strength. When I think about the hopes and dreams and aspirations of our ancestors, whether you are, a descendant of the formerly enslaved, or whether you are an immigrant from around the globe, this country has certainly created opportunity for so many people across the globe. And my full expectation is that the people of Chicago do what we do best, and that's show up for community, and celebrate in style and do it safely.
Without a doubt. Let's talk a little bit about that in terms of safety in the city. You've made, again, strides since we talked last a month ago. And we're in the throes of summer now, so we know how that changes the dynamic for any city in the country, not just Chicago, but particularly big cities. Kind of give us the state of Chicago as it relates to safety, as it relates to, the budget. Where are we? How are we really doing? Give us the hard and the good and the not so good.
Of course. Look, there's no secret that we are certainly in a stronger position, but we have a lot more work to do still. And when I took office, I said that we have to focus on community safety, and I've made it my top priority from the very beginning. Now, since I've been in office, we've cut homicides down considerably. Since 2022, we've cut them in half. And as you know, last year we had the fewest amount of homicides in 60 years. Now there are still pockets of the city where severe disinvestment has created a great deal of trauma, and we're still working to make those necessary investments to address that pain. And so there are sections of the city. I was in the back of the yards neighborhood yesterday in District 9 with the chief just walk up. Community-based organizations about ways to remove those barriers that oftentimes leads to bad behavior. As far as the finances are concerned, we know that the pensions and as well as police settlements have really dogged our. I've worked these last couple of years to strengthen our economic prowess. You may have read just recently that we released our annual ACPR report, and we ended last year with the surplus, but there's still lingering challenges that we have, particularly as it relates to pensions. But all of it really requires us to push for progressive revenue. This last session in Springfield, our advocacy led to a couple of things: a digital ad tax and a social media tax, which I was the first leader in the country to pass a revenue stream of that kind, a tax on big tech companies. And we need that progressive revenue to continue to provide the quality services that people of Chicago depend on, but also to be able to deal with the lingering pension responsibilities that we have that are obviously protected in the Illinois Constitution.
One of the things, Mayor Johnson, I had one of the directors on from the Citizens Action Illinois yesterday, and she talked about that very thing with regard to the tech tax, and that it's a way that many municipalities have to look at, or I should say it's an area that many have to look at, because it's part of our future as it relates to the growing number of tech companies, data centers, all the rest. How is the business community at large looking at Chicago? And what I mean by that is, those that are considering coming to Chicago as a place for their business to be domiciled? What are you seeing? Where are our opportunities in that space?
hmm Well, look, I think that the person you were speaking with is absolutely right. That's always been my case. That as our economy becomes more digitized, we have to shift government to be able to go in that direction, to be able to receive the revenue that comes with an ever increasing, shifting economy. And as I said, we put the social media amusement responsibility tax forward, and our projections that we had initially are were relatively conservative, and we're overperforming. Right now, we're overperforming by about 58.7%. So we projected $30 million or so. All of those dollars would go towards mental and behavioral healthcare services, and we're on pace to generate about $55 million. As it relates to businesses as a whole, look, Chicago is still the top destination for corporate relocation, and we're going on 13 years in a row. There are cranes in the air, 19 on the way. I believe we have 6 or 7, maybe 8 cranes in the air now, 18 on the way. And the pro-business decisions that corporations have made, I believe it's 88, 30 for the region, of which 33 or so are those pro-business decisions are right here in Chicago. And what you're seeing is, because our economy is so diverse, we have the most diverse economy anywhere in the country. So now one industry comprises more than 15% of our overall GDP. I think the other thing too that's attracting business to Chicago is our talent. The city of Chicago is the top destination for college graduates, and I'm reminding my son of that as he prepares to leave for Easter. Don't get no ideas just because you're going 3.5 hours away. Don't think that you're not responsible to come back to the city that your father runs and use that talent for us. But look, the reason why college graduates are coming to Chicago is not just because our economy is diverse. Here's the other part that's attractive to corporations: it's affordable. So you're able to attract good talent. We have top universities anywhere in the world, and you can still afford to live in a big city, unlike New York. And I know they're working towards it, but average price of a home is $1.1 million, and Mayor Bass is dealing with a similar challenge in Los Angeles, and I know she's working to address it. Average price of a home in LA is over $900,000, and that's for a fixer-upper. So the businesses see Chicago as the I'm going to say this carefully, but as the second coming, if you will, of a reconstruction or a renaissance of our economy of sort. And we saw that just last year when we literally broke the record in terms of tourists. Millions of people came to the city of Chicago, and of those people, they spent over $21 billion into our economy. And we're already on pace to break that record. Not to mention, we have the busiest airport anywhere in the world. And listen, I'm not saying it's perfect. I'm just saying that I can't think of any mayor in modern history that has overseen the city where more people are visiting, or corporations are relocating, and we're experiencing historic lows and violence, while at the same time, you're seeing investments increase in neighborhoods that have been historically neglected.
Yeah, that is such a good review of the things that I think more people want to hear and they need to hear to stay in support of what you're doing. Let's take a quick break, Mayor Johnson. And when we come back, I want to talk a little bit about some of the changes that are taking place with regard to the administration and things that you're dealing with there, and then a little bit of the outlook as we go forward the rest of this month. 773-763-9278 is the number. You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT AM 820 in Chicago and WARR 1520 AM and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina. And now our good friends at AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. I'm Richard Chu. We're talking with Chicago's Mayor, Brandon Johnson, and we'll be right back. To Choose Views, I'm Richard Chu. If you're just tuning in, we're talking with Chicago's Mayor, Brandon Johnson, about a number of things. Mayor Johnson, the field just got crowded in terms of the upcoming mayoral race that's inevitable and going to happen. And I know that you are our current mayor, but you've got some folks that have decided to join the race, with one leaving your team and entering the race. It's a crowded field. What are your thoughts about that? I mean, we talked about this a little bit before, but as you look at this, how does that set with you?
Well, as I've said, my primary focus is building the safest, most affordable big city in America, and I mean that with everything in me. I think the people of Chicago really deserve the undivided attention, and the ability to walk and chew gum. That's something that I've been able to perfect. So at some point the politics will address itself, but right now, as we are at a real pivotal moment in our city's history, I want to make sure that, especially working people, that they know that the decisions that I'm making are centered around making life better for them. Just the other day ago, my team were sitting down thinking about ways in which we can, increase our investments. Just on the west side alone, we've invested $2 billion economic development just on the west side for years. On the south side, $2.6 billion. We're talking about new investments, whether we're building hospitals on the south side of Chicago, the first one in over 100 years. On the west side, have a wellness center along Madison, expanding the Malcolm X college campus to help respond to the healthcare professional crisis that we have. These are the things that I focus my attention on, making sure that our young people have opportunities and expanding our mental and behavioral health care. And as I said, we've done all of this, with a progressive model while still attracting business. And, before the break, I just think it's important to lift up that, Richard, you remember when I was running, folks, first of all, said I didn't have a chance, right?
Yep.
And then they said, if I do win, there's going to be blood in the streets and businesses are going to flee, and there's going to be a massive exodus of the police department, and I'm going to give all the money to unions, right? And particularly Chicago Teachers Union, and that none of that, manifested. We did invest more in public education than any other administration. The first mayor since Mayor Harold Washington to expand public and mental and behavioral health care services, and publicly funded. And we've inherited a financial crisis that even the Tribune had to report.
I know
that Mayor Johnson accounting for this moment. It turns out that middle school teacher actually knows what he's talking about, knows what he's doing. Now, it doesn't mean things aren't, it doesn't mean things are perfect. And, as I said, to you last month, I was preparing to celebrate my 28th wedding anniversary, and my wife and I celebrated 28 years, and we're living proof that things don't have to be perfect in order for them to work. And my wife would be the first to tell you that I am not perfect, but somehow she's managed to allow me to sleep next to her every night for the last 28 years. So,
well, I have to say this, Mayor Johnson, my wife and your wife must be communicating by osmosis, because we had a similar conversation just recently about, perfection's not the goal, but everlasting is. And I think that the city of Chicago, the big shoulders mentality and the broadness of what we try to do here is real, and people have to be willing to roll up their sleeves a little bit. One more role if they really believe in the city. And I get a little, and I admittedly, I've gotten a little preachy about that with folks across the spectrum in our country, and alone in our city. If it's not, roll up your sleeves, get in the fight, and be willing to help move things along, rather than just constantly be a hurdle to things not moving forward. And so, I think that that's what a lot of people are looking for right now, is who's willing to fight. And I have to compliment you. You had 2 interviews that I saw where you fought for the city of Chicago. One in terms of the conversation around teens, and the second was around the independence of the people in the city of Chicago. And I think that's what folks are asking for right now, is are our leaders willing to fight for the things that matter most for the most of us? And so, I think that's kind of that's got to be part of the conversation, no matter where we are politically, whether it be a local scenario, state or federal. So let me ask you this question. Speaking of safety, Commissioner Snelling just left, and he's been a big partner for you, with you in your success with regard to violence, not violence, but safety. And such in the city of Chicago, and safety in ways that a lot of people don't see oftentimes, just driving safety, road safety, being able to have a police force that can tell you, hey, we got some issues over here. How is this going to impact your success in this area?
Yeah, well, first of all, I offer up yet another congratulations to Superintendent Snelling. 34 years dedicating his life, literally his life, for the people of Chicago, and his South Side roots and being raised in Inglewood certainly gave him perspective that I needed, quite frankly, in my administration, and that's what I always seek when I'm assembling a team: people who bring perspective and insight that provides match and balance to my approach. And I just think that when it comes to a dedicated public servant in whatever capacity that they operate in, they know when it's time for them to move on. And, he made a very personal decision, and I fully support him. And look, when I selected him to be my superintendent, what I was very clear about is that we can't just rely on policing alone. And that's a propensity that our nation has had, and it doesn't necessarily yield to safer communities, right? Dr. King described militarization, racism as two of the three evils, right? And of course, poverty, capitalism being the other. And so, as I said before, and that it's going to take a full force of government approach. But one of the things that I was grateful for, two things actually, his commitment to constitutional and community policing, as well as my approach towards, investing in our Detectives Bureau. Chief Ursetti is now the first deputy chief. She was over the Detectives Bureau these last few years, and we have seen clearance rates go up considerably, 72%, 75%. In terms of solving cases, and that helps bring accountability to our community. And so, what I'm going to do is do what leaders do, right? You build a system, and you find the right people who can operate within that system. And I feel confident that we'll find someone. But in the meantime, finally, Fred Waller, which I told him I apologize, man. This man has been trying to retire probably for the last two administrations. And so, he was my interim superintendent. I said, listen, you got another run in you. And he said, absolutely. So, he's been around. In fact, I think the part that's really neat about Fred Waller, he was literally the first graduating class of new police officers under the Harold Washington administration. And he talks about being, in that seat as Mayor Harold Washington was delivering the call to action. So, Fred Waller brings a great deal of experience and compassion and that same type of approach to community safety that I'm focused on. And again, we're going to celebrate Superintendent Snelling and wish him well in his next phase of life. And we're going to tap Fred Waller again, and we'll go through a full vetting process, and I'll select someone that matches and complements the work that we're doing.
Yeah, he comes from good stock, and it's nice to be able to look back and have that kind of talent be able to be a part of the team. Mayor Johnson, as we wrap up, and as always, thanks for hanging with us on a Friday. It's hot in Chicago. We know that the temperatures will kind of pass through. It's why it's called a heat wave. But what are some words that you want to share with everybody real quick before we wrap up, kind of as your outlook with the heat and all that's going on with the summer?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you again for this opportunity, and to the people of Chicago, let's check in with one another. Let's celebrate in community. And, I'm grateful for how we responded in this moment. As of date, we have not, heard of, any, act of life being lost as a result of the heat. And that has a lot to do with just the way our systems have come together, providing cooling centers. But again, celebrate. I'm going to be with my family this weekend, but I'll be in community in Hyde Park and the 4th of July parade. I'm headed to my son has an early baseball game today, and so I'll be enjoying him, and hopefully his team plays well. But again, really just look out for one another. Let's celebrate in community. Chicago is certainly the epicenter for everything that's possible in our country, and there's not a more American city than Chicago. So thank you again, Richard, and to all of your listeners, and of course, happy birthday, America, and enjoy the 4th.
Absolutely. Mayor Johnson, stay safe. Good luck to your son's team in the game. And we appreciate your leadership. Keep the fight up. We will do our best to keep encouraging you to do a great job in the city of Chicago. Have a good weekend. We'll talk to you soon.
Yes, sir. You
All
too.
right.
Bye-bye.
Bye now. All right, guys. Thanks to Henry, and thanks to Mike for keeping us on the rails, as I always say. And thanks to you guys for getting us through our America 250 week. It is a joy, more than you guys can imagine, to do the best that I can and bring you the best that I've got every day. And I appreciate you guys listening to myself and all of our guests, whoever they might be, from wherever they might be. Some shout outs to Nancy and to Robert and to Lois and to Al and all of you guys who have sent me texts this morning. And I just appreciate you all so much. Stay tuned for the Stephanie Miller Show, and do me this favor, guys. Make sure that the people, like Mayor Johnson said, that that might be a little challenge with the weather, wherever you are in the country, that you look in on them. That's important. That's the American thing to do, is to look in on our neighbors and to look in on those that we know, but maybe even those that we may not know. Make that part of what you're doing right now as we work hard to come together, not with just a celebration and happy birthday, America, as Mayor Johnson said, but that we look in on each other at large, and we're making sure that we are connected, because they're working really hard to divide us, and we're not going to let that happen. As always, I'm Richard Chu. Stay tuned for the Stephanie Miller Show. Take a deep breath and make your life count. Happy 4th, you guys. We'll see you next week.